My father walked into my apartment, handed me a cold cup of coffee, and said, "Family comes first." I didn't understand what he meant until I logged into my bank app an hour later. $140,000, my entire life savings, meant for the down payment on my first home, was gone. Zero balance. When I confronted him, he didn't even blink. He told me my sister's luxury lifestyle debt was more urgent than my little housing dream. He thought because he was an authorized joint user from when I was 19, I had no choice but to accept it. My sister even texted me a picture from her tropical vacation with the caption, "Thanks, sis." They thought I would cry, scream, and eventually forgive them like I always did. But they forgot one tiny detail. I managed the accounting firm that audited my father's business. My next move didn't just shock them. It brought their entire financial house of cards down. My name is Elena Sterling. At 32, I had spent a decade building a successful career as a senior forensic accountant in Chicago. I spent my days analyzing balance sheets and tracking down hidden assets for high-net-worth clients. I was methodical and disciplined. Outside of work, I lived frugally in a rented apartment, driving a sensible sedan, saving every extra penny. For 8 years, I worked toward a single goal: buying a historic brownstone in the city. By 32, I had accumulated $140,000 in a high-yield savings account. That balance represented every late night at the office and every skipped vacation. But there was a flaw in my financial security, a remnant of my past I had forgotten to fix. When I was 19 and leaving for college, my father, Arthur Sterling, insisted on setting up a joint bank account so he could wire emergency funds. In those early years, it was a comforting safety net. As I became financially independent, the account remained open. I added secondary sub-accounts for my savings under the same profile, assuming my father wouldn't touch them. I was wrong. The morning after my father brought that cold coffee, I opened my portal to review mortgage figures. Seeing zeros where 6 figures belonged sent a physical shock through me. The transaction history showed a single wire transfer from the previous evening, $140,000 sent directly to an account belonging to my 27-year-old sister, Chloe. I sat in my office chair, hands trembling as I called my father. He picked up on the third ring, brisk and unbothered. When I demanded to know why my money was gone, Arthur sighed with his usual patronizing tone. "Elena, calm down," he said. Chloe was facing serious legal action over personal loans and credit card debts. As her older sister, you should be relieved we fixed it before it ruined her life. "Fix it?" I choked out. "Dad, that was my home down payment. You stole my entire savings." "I didn't steal anything," Arthur snapped. "My name is on that account. Legally, I had every right to transfer those funds. You make a fantastic salary and can rebuild your savings. Chloe doesn't have your career. Stop being selfish." An hour later, I received an Instagram notification. It was a story post from Chloe holding a mimosa on a beach in Cabo, wearing designer sunglasses, captioned, "Stress-free at last. Thanks, sis." Her emergency wasn't a crisis. It was years of unearned luxury, high-end clothes, tropical trips, and sports cars, funded by a father who coddled her and viewed my hard work as a community resource. I arranged to meet Arthur and Chloe for dinner that evening at an upscale steakhouse downtown. When I arrived, Chloe was already sitting in the booth, wearing a new silk dress and flashing a fresh manicure. Arthur sat beside her in a custom suit. As soon as drinks arrived, I pulled out a crisp white folder containing a legally binding promissory note outlining a strict monthly repayment schedule for the $140,000 over 2 years, plus interest. Arthur picked up the paper, tore it in half, and dropped the pieces into his water glass. "We aren't signing that, Elena," Arthur said calmly. Chloe needed a clean slate. I decided how those resources were best deployed. Consider it your contribution to keeping your sister out of bankruptcy. Chloe rolled her eyes, taking a sip of her cocktail. "Honestly, Elena, you live like a monk anyway. What were you going to do with the brownstone?" I was literally being harassed by debt collectors. Dad did the right thing. The utter lack of remorse made something freeze inside me. They viewed me as a utility, a financial cushion for their lifestyle choices. Is that your final answer? I asked softly. You refuse to return the funds? It is, Arthur said. If you consult a lawyer, remember my name was on that account. Save your dignity. I didn't scream or throw a drink. Instead, absolute clarity settled over my mind. Years of forensic accounting had taught me one rule. People who play fast and loose with ethics in their personal lives always leave a trail in their professional lives. Enjoy your dinner, I said and walked out. When I returned to my apartment, I got straight to work. I called my bank's fraud division to revoke my father's access from every remaining account, transferring my funds to a completely separate bank. Next, I consulted a top asset protection attorney. My lawyer confirmed that because Arthur was a joint owner on that specific account, a traditional criminal theft charge would be an uphill battle in civil court. However, my attorney pointed out a critical detail. While Arthur used his joint status to take my money, his corporate finances were far more vulnerable. Arthur owned Sterling Commercial Properties, a mid-sized real estate firm managing retail strip malls and office buildings. To the public, he appeared wealthy. But as a forensic accountant, I knew commercial real estate survived on leverage, heavy loans, revolving lines of credit, and refinancing backed by banks. I spent 3 days reviewing public land registries and corporate filings for his business, strictly relying on public records to maintain professional ethics. That was when I uncovered something extraordinary. 7 years ago, when Arthur expanded his flagship 3-story office building downtown, he needed a $2 million commercial lease. To secure lower interest rates, the bank required an additional personal guarantor with clean credit and zero debt. At 25, fresh out of graduate school with a pristine credit score, I had signed a document at my father's request. He had claimed it was a routine co-signature for utility lines. In reality, Arthur had listed me as the primary personal guarantor on his $2 million lease. For 7 years, my clean credit had been silently underpinning his entire business. Because the lease agreement had just reached its 7-year renewal window, the lender had recently sent a personal guarantor re-verification notice to my address. My father believed he held all the cards because of a joint bank account. He had no idea I held the single string keeping his corporate enterprise afloat. My next move was swift, legal, and precise. First, I drafted a formal legal notice to the commercial lending institution. As a listed guarantor whose personal assets had been unilaterally liquidated by the primary borrower, I formally exercised my legal right to withdraw as a guarantor upon the lease's renewal threshold. This forced the lender to flag his commercial lease for an immediate emergency credit review. Under the strict covenants of Arthur's loan agreement, the sudden withdrawal of a primary guarantor triggered an automatic freeze on his revolving business line of credit. Without it, Arthur could not pay vendor operations, staff, or utility accounts. Second, my attorney filed an emergency petition in county court for a prejudgment asset attachment lien against Arthur's primary commercial holding building, citing unjust enrichment and converted personal funds. Backed by 8 years of unbroken payroll deposit records proving the $140,000 came solely from my salary, the judge granted a temporary lease pendens lien on his downtown commercial building. This public legal notice meant the property could not be sold, refinanced, or used as collateral until our legal dispute was resolved. The trap was set. On Thursday afternoon, Arthur hosted a high-stakes luncheon at a private club with 3 prospective investors to secure a private loan for quarterly debts. Chloe was there, acting as hostess. Midway through the meal, Arthur attempted to use his corporate card to cover the $1,200 bill. Declined. He tried a secondary credit card. Declined again. Within 10 minutes, Arthur received an urgent call from his chief financial officer. The bank had frozen all credit lines due to the void in his lease guarantor structure. Simultaneously, the bank's legal team notified him that a $140,000 legal lien had been placed on his primary commercial title, halting his new investment deal. His entire business was completely paralyzed. An hour later, my office door flew open. Arthur and Chloe stormed into the reception area, red-faced and hyperventilating. I motioned for them to step into the main glass conference room. "Have you lost your mind?" Arthur roared. "My credit lines are frozen." My investors walked out. What did you do to my business? Chloe sobbed beside him. Elena, you ruined everything. Dad was supposed to buy out my car lease today. I sat at the head of the conference table, calm and composed. I opened a binder and placed 2 documents on the table. 7 years ago, Dad, you put my name down as a guarantor on your $2 million lease without explaining the risks, I said quietly. And 4 days ago, you stole $140,000 of my savings to fund Chloe's lifestyle. I am your father. Arthur slammed his hand on the table. I built the life you have. Respect is earned, Dad. Legally, I have withdrawn my guarantee. The bank will not unfreeze your credit lines until you present a new guarantor with a net worth of $3 million, which no bank will approve given your debt. And the lien on your property will remain until my money is returned. I don't have $140,000 sitting in cash. Arthur panicked. Everything is tied up in the business. Then you had better find it, I replied, looking at Chloe. Sell Chloe's sports car, liquidate her designer collection, and draw the remainder from your emergency reserves. You have 48 hours to wire $140,000 plus $5,000 in legal fees back to my account. If it isn't transferred by 5 o'clock Saturday, my attorney will foreclose on the property lien and file a report with the state banking commissioner regarding unauthorized signatures. Arthur stared at me, searching for a trace of the quiet, compliant daughter he used to manipulate. He found none. You would destroy your own family over money? Chloe sobbed. You destroyed this family the second you decided my life's work was yours to take, I said. 48 hours. At 3:45 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, my phone chimed. Wire transfer received. $145,000. Balance updated. Arthur had sold Chloe's car at a loss, liquidated his personal emergency stock portfolio, and transferred every penny back to me. Along with the wire came a furious text. The money is returned. Remove the lien and never contact us again. I instructed my attorney to release the lien and finalize my complete legal separation from his corporate entities. I blocked Arthur and Chloe's numbers, removed them from social media, and severed every remaining connection. 2 months later, I stood in the entryway of a sunlit historic brownstone on the north side of Chicago. The hardwood floors gleamed, and the keys to the front door rested firmly in my hand. I had closed on my dream home on my own terms. Sitting on my front porch with a hot cup of coffee, I felt total peace. I had lost a father and a sister, but I had gained my independence, self-respect, and the certainty that I would never allow anyone to make me feel powerless again. Blood doesn't give anyone the right to bleed you dry. What would you have done in my position? Would you have taken the legal route or walked away to keep the peace? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and click the notification bell. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.